You know, they say life's a party. But what they don't tell you is sometimes the music stops, the lights come on, and you're left staring at a mess. That was me, standing amidst the wreckage of what I thought was a happy marriage. Our 10th anniversary bash was the epitome of perfection, a lavish affair where laughter flowed as freely as the champagne. My wife, Julia, was the belle of the ball, her smile as bright as the diamonds I'd gifted her. I was on top of the world, a self-made man who just clinched a deal that was the cherry on top of my already thriving business. Life was good, or so I thought. But soon after, things started to change. Julia, once the anchor of my hectic life, became distant. Her presence at home dwindled. Work meetings and girls' nights filled her calendar. I tried to brush it off as a phase. After all, we were both busy adults, right? Then came the day that turned my doubts into cold, hard reality. I stumbled upon her phone, buzzing with a new message. Curiosity, they say, killed the cat. In my case, it shattered my world. The texts I saw were not just friendly, they were intimate, laced with a familiarity that twisted my gut into knots. They were from some guy named Mark, a name I'd never heard before. Confronting Julia was like igniting a powder keg. She denied everything, her words sharp and accusing. I was being paranoid, she claimed, suffocating her with my insecurities. But the trust between us had cracked, and I couldn't just let it go. So, I did what any desperate, cornered husband would do. I hired a private investigator. It felt like a betrayal, a sordid step into a world I never thought I'd enter. Yet, I needed the truth, no matter how ugly it might turn out to be. As days turned into weeks, the pie fed me bits and pieces of Julia's secret life. Each report, each photograph was a hammer blow to the life I'd built. It wasn't just texts anymore. There were dinners, late-night rendezvous, and that look in her eyes that I thought was reserved only for me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, a man who prided himself on making smart, calculated decisions, completely blindsided in the most personal aspect of his life. I thought I knew her. I thought we were happy. But as the evidence piled up, I had to face the harsh truth. The woman I loved, the woman I'd built a life with, was a stranger. The day I got those photos from the pie was the day my world stopped spinning. There they were, glossy, undeniable proof of Julia's affair. Seeing her with another man was like a punch to the gut. I sat there, in my office, the pictures spread out on my desk like some grotesque collage, each one a betrayal. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what came next. I was at work, right in the middle of a meeting when I got served. Divorce papers, in front of my entire team. The look of pity in their eyes was almost as painful as the contents of those papers. Julia was going for the jugular, not just half of our assets, but full custody of our kids, too. It felt like I was in some twisted nightmare. I moved out of our family home, our sanctuary of over a decade, and into a cramped apartment that echoed with the silence of my new reality. The walls were bare, the rooms filled with the ghosts of my former life. Adjusting was an understatement. I was sleepwalking through a life I didn't recognize. Then came the divorce proceedings. You see, in our society, divorce isn't just between two people. It's a spectacle, and ours was no exception. Accusations flew, dirty laundry was aired, and whatever shred of privacy or dignity I had left was trampled under the public's watchful eye. I'd become that guy, the one people whispered about in the corridors. The worst part? The affair went public. Julia's once pristine social image was now tainted. The same society that once adored her, now shunned her. The irony of it was cold comfort to me. I had wanted justice, sure, but watching her fall from grace wasn't as satisfying as I'd imagined. It was just sad, a grim reminder of how far we'd fallen. The days blurred into one another, each bringing its own set of challenges. I was fighting a battle on all fronts, personal, professional, legal. But in this whirlwind of chaos, there was a strange sense of clarity. It was as if the storm had stripped away all the pretenses, leaving me with nothing but the raw truth of my situation. And somewhere in that truth, I began to find the strength to rebuild, piece by painstaking piece. You'd think that after a scandal like mine, the worst thing would be the heartbreak or the loneliness. But no, it was watching the empire I built from scratch crumble before my eyes. Clients I'd worked with for years, clients I called friends, vanished. Each email saying, "We're moving in a different direction," was a nail in the coffin of my once thriving business. The divorce wasn't just taking my marriage, it was taking my life's work. Just when I thought I'd hit rock bottom, Mike, an old college buddy, called me up. "I've got a proposition for you," he said. He'd been following my saga, and instead of turning away, he was reaching out. Mike had this crazy idea for a tech startup, something about revolutionizing the way small businesses handle online marketing. It was risky, completely out of my comfort zone, but what did I have to lose? So, I dove in. I poured every ounce of energy into this new venture. The long nights, the endless research, the constant pitching to skeptical investors. It was exhausting but exhilarating. There's something about building something from nothing that reignites a fire in you. A fire I thought Julia had extinguished. Slowly but surely, we started to gain traction. Our small team was like a family, each of us driven by our own reasons, united by the common goal of proving ourselves. We landed our first major client, then another, and then another. It was more than just a business succeeding, it was my comeback story. Meanwhile, karma was having its way with Julia. Her lover, the man she wrecked our family for, walked out on her, cited the scandal and her manipulative ways as his reasons. Part of me felt vindicated, sure, but another part, a part one didn't want to acknowledge, felt sorry for her. She was reaping what she'd sown. But the sight of someone you once loved hitting rock bottom is never pleasant. The success of the new venture was about more than just financial gain. It was a testament to resilience, a middle finger to every doubter, every whisper behind my back, every pitiful look I'd received in the past months. I wasn't just rebuilding my business, I was rebuilding myself. Sometimes, life gives you a second chance, but not in the way you expect. The day I won that court case over our shared vacation home, it wasn't just about the property. It was a symbol, a sign that maybe, just maybe, the tides were turning in my favor. It was a minor victory, but it felt like a watershed moment in the never-ending storm of my divorce. Around the same time, Julia's life seemed to be unraveling at the seams. Her financial woes were the talk of the town, quite the fall from grace for someone who once prided herself on her social status. Her so-called friends started distancing themselves, as if her misfortune was contagious. I won't lie, part of me felt a grim satisfaction seeing her get a taste of her own medicine. But life had more in store for me. My new business, which started as a desperate shot in the dark, landed a deal that was nothing short of a miracle. We secured a contract with one of the biggest names in the industry, catapulting us back into the limelight. From the ashes of my old life, I was rising, stronger and more determined than ever. Then, out of the blue, Julia reached out. She wanted to talk, to sort things out. Mistakes, misunderstandings, the words tasted bitter. I'd moved past the anger, but the scars were still there, raw and tender. I met her, yes, but the man she faced that day was no longer the one she left. I listened, more out of curiosity than anything else. Her pleas, once capable of swaying me, now fell on deaf ears. My focus was my children, my business, not the remnants of a love turned sour. It was a surreal experience, watching the woman who once held my heart now grasping at straws, trying to claw her way back into a life she'd willingly thrown away. But the bridges were burned, and I was not about to rebuild them for her to cross again. The fallout from her choices wasn't just legal or financial, it was social suicide. The same people who once flocked around her were now nowhere to be seen. She was left to face the consequences alone, ostracized from the world she once ruled. This chapter of my life wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about learning, growing, and accepting that some things, once broken, can never be put back together. It was a hard lesson, learned through tears and turmoil, but it was mine, and it had shaped me into who I was becoming. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. There's something about hitting rock bottom. It strips away all the pretenses, all the noise, and leaves you with what's truly important. For me, that was my kids. The day they told me they wanted to stay with me, not just for a weekend or a holiday, but for good, that was the day I knew I'd done something right amidst all the chaos. Their choice spoke volumes, more than any court ruling ever could. It was a bittersweet victory, though. They were seeking refuge from the storm their mother had created, and as much as I welcomed them with open arms, it pained me to see them caught in the crossfire of our broken marriage. Business-wise, things were looking up. We launched a product that was the first of its kind in the market, a real game changer. The buzz it created was unreal. We were not just back in business, we were making headlines. It felt like a vindication of all the late nights, the doubts, the risks. This success was more than financial. It was a testament to what you can achieve when you refuse to give up, no matter how many times life knocks you down. Meanwhile, Julia's world seemed to be crumbling faster than ever. The legal fees from our never-ending divorce battle were piling up, and her lavish lifestyle was no longer sustainable. I heard through the grapevine that she had started selling off her jewelry, designer clothes, remnants of a life she could no longer afford. It was a stark contrast to the life she'd chosen over our family. During this time, I met someone. Sarah was her name. Meeting her was like a breath of fresh air. She was everything Julia wasn't: kind, genuine, grounded. She didn't care about my money or my past. She saw me, the real me, not the tabloid version or the successful entrepreneur. We started dating, taking it slow. The kids liked her, which was all I could ask for. She brought a sense of normalcy, a sense of peace that had been missing from my life for far too long. Julia, on the other hand, was forced to downsize. The luxurious house we once called a home was no longer hers. Last I heard, she'd moved into a modest apartment, a far cry from the opulence she was accustomed to. Part of me felt sorry for her. We'd shared a life, after all. But another part, the part that had been betrayed and dragged through the mud, couldn't help but think it was a fitting outcome for the choices she'd made. Life's funny, you know? Just when you think you've got it all figured out, it throws you a curveball. But sometimes, those curveballs can lead to a home run. That's what happened when Sarah entered our lives. The kids took to her like fish to water. There was laughter in the house again. Real laughter. We'd sit around the dinner table, sharing stories, making plans. It felt like a family, a real family. Sarah had this way of making things feel normal, even when the world outside was anything but. But while we were finding our peace, Julia's world was falling apart. Social media can be brutal, and she was getting the brunt of it. The backlash was fierce. I'd see the comments, the judgments passed by strangers. It was a public shaming of the worst kind. I won't lie. Part of me thought she deserved it, but another part, maybe the fatherly part, felt bad. I knew the impact it was having on her mental health. It's one thing to face consequences, but another to be torn apart by the faceless masses. In the midst of all this, my business was thriving. We were making waves, and people were taking notice. I was awarded for my entrepreneurial spirit, for making a comeback against all odds. Standing there, accepting that award, I looked out and realized how far I'd come. From the depths of despair to a moment of triumph, it was a journey I'd never forget. It was more than an award. It was a validation of my resilience, my refusal to be kept down. The fallout from the scandal was reaching far and wide, and it hit Julia hard when her own parents turned their backs on her. They were traditional, the kind who viewed family and reputation above all else. They couldn't stomach what she'd done, the scandal she'd caused. It was a harsh blow, losing her family over choices she'd made. I felt for the kids. They were caught in the middle of this familial rift, through no fault of their own. As for us, we were moving up, quite literally. I bought a new house, a place where we could start fresh. It was spacious, with a big backyard for the kids, a place where they could grow, where we could make new memories. It was a symbol of our new beginning, a testament to the life we were building together. The day we moved in, I stood at the doorway, watching the kids run around, exploring every nook and cranny, Sarah organizing the kitchen, her laughter mingling with theirs. It felt right. It felt like home. Life's like a road, full of twists and turns. My road was veering towards a sunny horizon while Julia seemed to be stuck in a never-ending storm. I heard through the grapevine that she tried to start her own business, a boutique or something. But it tanked hard. No support, no connections. She'd burned too many bridges. I couldn't help but think it was a grim reminder of how alone she'd made herself. Meanwhile, our kids were thriving. Jack nailed every baseball game, and Lily, my little math whiz, was acing her classes. They'd come home with trophies and certificates, their faces beaming with pride. "Thanks, Dad," they'd say, "for always being there." Those words, let me tell you, they meant everything. It was proof that despite the mess, I was doing something right for them. The news about Julia's health hit me unexpectedly. Stress, loneliness, it was all taking its toll. I saw her once during this time, and the change was stark. The vibrant woman I once knew was now just a shadow, frail and hollow-eyed. Our marriage was long over, but it was hard to see her like that. The mother of my children, someone I once shared a life with. In the midst of this, something beautiful happened. I proposed to Sarah. It was nothing fancy, just us and a sunset. But when she said yes, it felt like a new chapter opening. We started planning a small wedding, Nothing like the extravagant affair I had with Julia. This time, it was about us, about the simplicity of our love. But Julia, she wasn't done yet. She tried to stir up trouble, spreading rumors, trying to drag my name through the mud again. But it didn't stick. People had seen through her, and my reputation was stronger than ever, built on hard work and resilience. Her attempts fell flat, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of finality, like that chapter of my life was truly closing. Life's a journey of ups and downs, and I'd seen my fair share of both. But that day, the day Sarah and I got married, was definitely one of the UPS. It was a modest affair, just close friends and family, but it was perfect. The local media caught wind of it and gave us a little shout out. Positive stuff? Eh? Local businessman finds love again. Kind of story. It felt good, not gonna lie. The kids were beaming, Sarah was radiant, and me? I was probably the happiest guy on the planet. Meanwhile, Julia was on a different path. I heard from mutual friends that she was doing some soul searching, finally coming to grips with the havoc she'd wreaked. I guess solitude does that to you, makes you reflect on your life, your choices. I can't say I didn't feel a twinge of something, not quite sympathy, but something close. We'd shared a life, after all. But that chapter was closed, and I had turned the page. Sarah and I went on our honeymoon, a cozy little getaway. We celebrated not just our marriage, but everything we'd overcome to be together. There were moments during those quiet evenings, watching the sunset, when I'd think about the roller coaster my life had been. From the depths of despair to finding love and happiness again. It was surreal. Sarah, with her unwavering support and love, had been my rock through it all. Back in town, Julia was reaching out to old friends, trying to mend fences. But it wasn't going well. Too many bridges had been burned. Too many words had been said. It's tough, watching someone who was once a vital part of your world become an outcast. But we reap what we sow, and Julia was learning that the hard way. On the business front, things were booming. We were expanding internationally, breaking into markets I'd only dreamed of a few years back. It was a testament to the hard work and dedication of my team, and to the resilience we'd all shown. We were making waves, and it felt incredible to be leading the charge. It was one of those parent events, and Jack and Lily had to talk about their heroes. To my utter surprise, they both spoke about me, my struggles, my comeback, how I'd always been there for them. Their words, simple yet sincere, struck a chord in me. Amidst all the chaos, I'd managed to be a good dad, and that was worth more than any business success. Julia's descent continued. She was neck-deep in debt, struggling to keep a roof over her head. I heard she tried to start a business, write a book, anything to claw her way back. But nothing took off. The book, particularly, was a desperate move. A tell-all about our life, our marriage. But no publisher wanted to touch it. Maybe they saw it for what it was, a last-ditch effort to capitalize on a failed relationship. On my end, things were looking up. I decided to give back, to help others who'd hit rock bottom like I once had. I started a charity foundation focused on rebuilding lives, whether it was through financial aid, counseling, or simply giving a listening ear. It was my way of paying forward the second chance I'd been given. The highlight of this chapter of my life came unexpectedly. A major magazine got wind of my story, the downfall, the comeback, the new family, the charity work. They did a feature on me, calling it an inspiring tale of resilience and redemption. It was surreal, seeing my face on the cover, reading about my journey. I wasn't just a businessman anymore. I was a symbol of hope. As for Julia, she ended up alone. It was a harsh reality that she had to face, the consequences of her choices, the fallout of her actions. It was a sad end to a story that had started with so much promise. But that's the thing about life, it goes on. I, 29 male, met my wife, 30 female, when we were both working as summer interns during college at an ad agency. We hit it off and we started dating. It was a little difficult because we both lived in the same city, but we went to school in different states. When the semesters kicked back up, we decided that we wanted to try long distance. It worked out fine for both of us, and after we graduated we both moved to the same city, and we decided to live together. We got married a year after moving together. Everyone we knew was trying to tell us that it was too soon to get married, and that we were being naive by thinking that a year living together was enough time to truly know if we were meant to be, but we ignore all of them. For the first 6 years of our marriage, we didn't have any issues. We were both working hard to make it at our jobs. We started a family, and we bought a house. It was exactly what we both wanted. After several years of being disrespected by her employers and treated like she was dirt, my wife decided that she was going to be leaving her job and pursuing employment elsewhere. In the end, It turned out to be one of the best decisions of her life because she ended up working with some people that respected her, and there was actually room for growth. When she started this new job, a lot of her coworkers were super friendly and invited her to go out with them. They just wanted to get to know her because it was apparently a close-knit company. She was excited to get to know people that she might consider friends. I didn't think anything of it. In fact, I was very supportive of her going and making friends. It can be very difficult to make new friends as an adult, so it was great that she was. She continued going to these outings once every couple of weeks. They usually did it around payday, and every time they went, somebody else would foot the bill. It was a nice little ritual that my wife was happy to be involved in. About 5 months into her employment, she went out with her friends and didn't come home until the morning. I was worried sick. I didn't know what happened. Normally, if she was going to be out later than 11 p.m., she would text me and tell me. I tried calling her and reaching out to her, but I didn't get any response. Honestly, I was close to calling the police and filing a missing person report. She came home around 5 a.m. and I was still awake because I was too anxious to sleep. She was disheveled and groggy, very clearly hungover. Right away, I confronted her and asked her where she was, telling her that not only did she worry me, but she worried our son too. She apologized and told me that she couldn't argue about it. Apparently, they were celebrating one of her coworkers' birthday, and she had drunk way too much. She ended up crashing at one of her coworkers' houses because they were within walking distance. I could see that she was in a pain, so I didn't push her any further. She apologized and went to lay down. I was extremely annoyed, and for the rest of the day, I was avoiding her because of my frustration. We talked about it a couple of days later because I was still annoyed, and she told me that she wouldn't let it get out of hand like that again. She actually ended up not going to the outing for a few weeks. She ended up calling me one Friday after work and telling me that some of her coworkers had practically begged her to go. So she asked me if it was all right. I was fine with it, as long as she wasn't getting trashed again. Once again, she ended up coming back later than usual. This time, she didn't spend the night somewhere else, but she came back around 2 a.m. She was completely drunk when she came in, but I did my duty as a husband, and I made sure she was okay. I got her some water, I gave her some Advil, and I tucked her into bed. As I was helping her change out of her work clothes, I couldn't help but notice that her shirt was on inside out. On top of that, there was a strong musky cologne scent coming from it. Right away, I was suspicious that something had happened that night. She wasn't in any condition to talk about it, so I asked her about it the following morning. She told me I was crazy, and that she would never do anything to risk hurting me or our son, but I couldn't help but wonder why her shirt was inside out. She went out the following week, and once again didn't come home until the middle of the night. She was drunk and apologizing to me, which I assumed at the time was because of how drunk she was. Once again, I smelled the same cologne I did last time. That was enough for me. When she passed out, I grabbed her phone and looked through it. I found her work group chat and looked through all of the people, then searched her private chats with them all. I found one for a coworker, let's call him Jim, and she and Jim had apparently kissed. My wife had messaged him and told him that it was just a drunken mistake, and it wouldn't happen again. She told him that there was nothing that they needed to worry about, as long as it didn't happen anymore. But Jim wanted to go even further. He told her that they had been flirting, and he's been thinking about it for a long time. It was surprisingly easy for my wife to confess that she was also thinking about him. The night before, Jim texted her and asked her if she would go out for drinks. She was hesitant to do so, because she worried that they would take a step further in their relationship. Jim said that he wasn't going to pressure her to do anything that she didn't want to, but he just wanted to be around her. She agreed to go, and what happened after that I could only assume was them pushing their relationship to the next level. However, I didn't have any proof that they had sex. I didn't say anything about it right away, because I wanted that proof before I confronted her, and she tried to deny it again. She told me the following Wednesday that she was going to go out on Friday night again. I told her it was fine. That gave me just enough time to hire a babysitter and follow her as she did. She went out to the bar with her colleagues. I could see them through one of the windows while I sat in my car outside. One by one, all of her colleagues were leaving the bar and going home. My wife stayed until she was left with Jim all alone. As the last colleague left, Jim reached over, grabbed her, and kissed her. My wife tossed her arms around his shoulders and really soaked in the embrace. I snapped a couple of pictures of that, but I needed more proof than a kiss. They paid the bill and shortly after hopped into Jim's car. I followed them to a parking lot where they went off in the distance, far away from everyone else. It was clear that they were having sex in the car. I got the evidence that I needed, but then I was curious about why they didn't just go to Jim's house. I looked him up online and found that he was married with 3 children and his wife was pregnant with their 4th. I felt sick to my stomach. I was disgusted by them both. There was no way that my wife didn't know about his family. It might have been extremely impulsive at the time, but I was furious with them. I called the cops and reported them for having sex in the car. It was dark out, but it was still clear what was going on in there. They were in public in a parking lot where anybody could walk by. I stayed and watched while a cop car strolled up and pulled them both out of the vehicle to talk to them. They weren't arrested, but the cop did slap them with a fine or ticket for public indecency. I thought it was hilarious. My wife was going to have to explain that to me. I couldn't wait to see what she came up with before I showed her the evidence. I got back home and sent the babysitter away before my wife got there, curious to see what she would tell me about her night. I asked her how it was, and she huffed that she got fined for public indecency. I played dumb and asked about how she got it. She told me that she was walking and the wind blew her skirt up near a cop and they thought she flashed them. It didn't even make sense. She was too intoxicated to come up with a decent lie. I told her that it was funny. That's what she got charged for when she was having sex in public. Then I showed her the evidence I found her. She tried to play it off like I was the bad guy for calling the police on her. She told me this would be on her permit record and her life would be impacted. I told her that wasn't my problem and that I was going to be divorcing her. I grabbed my son and drove to my mother's house to stay for the weekend. From what I gathered about Jim, he got the public indecency charge, but since he was so clearly intoxicated, he was also given a DUI. His wife ended up leaving him. I felt really bad for what happened with them, so I reached out to talk to her. I told her that if she ever needed anything or any help with the kids, I would be happy to lend a hand where I could. I won the house in the divorce and my wife was forced to quit her job and leave the city to go stay with her parents while she figured out what else to do. OP, I am so sorry that you had to go through all of that. It seems like your wife realized what she was doing was wrong, and she tried to put a stop to it before it began. It seems like a lot of the blame here should be on Jim, but because she knew what she was doing was wrong and continued to do it anyway, they're both to blame. It's very disheartening that somebody who had 3 children and a pregnant wife would so blatantly pursue another woman. It's good that he was faced with repercussions for what he did. I think that karma really got him in the end with the added DUI charge. If he ever has to look for another job, then that's going to reflect very poorly on him, and it's going to be very difficult. I think it's very admirable that you have offered to help his ex-wife. I hope that you guys can move on. Hopefully she ends up with a fair deal in the divorce to help with the children. Thank you for sharing with us. Now let's get into our second story for today. I, 31 male, have been with my wife, 30 female, for 5 years, and recently I found out that she cheated on me with her ex, aka one of my best friends. We met in college. We went to a very small school and we were a part of the same friend group. We were all very close and knew practically everything about each other. At some point, almost everybody in the group had dated each other. It felt natural. We were close and people developed feelings for each other. After graduation, I confessed my feelings to my wife, and she told me that she felt the same. We decided to give our relationship a shot, and things went really well for us. It felt like we were always supposed to be together, and everything else before that was just trial and error. Before she and I got together, she dated my best friend. I considered him to be one of the most important people in my life. When they were dating, everybody in the group would always joke about how they were couple goals. From the outside looking in, they seemed to be perfect for each other. However, being as close to my friend as I knew that they had a lot of problems. That's why when I started dating my wife, I was never worried about them wanting to get back together. Their problems were too bad for them to want to even try. Years later, my best friend met a wonderful girl, and they decided they wanted to get married. She fit right into the friend group, and everything seemed like it was going to work out fine. I would be lying if I said I never thought about my wife with my friend. Just having seen them in a relationship together, I knew how exciting everything was for them. I felt like I saw a different version of my wife when she was with him than when she was with me. When he announced his marriage, I couldn't help but notice that my wife was acting a little bit off. She said she was happy for them and that she was supportive of their engagement, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was a lie. One night, I let my insecurities get the better of me while I had a couple of drinks, and I asked her about it. We ended up getting into a huge argument where she told me that I was wrong for even thinking she was interested in anyone else. At the end of the night, she told me to leave our apartment because she was so angry. I ended up going to my best friend's house where I told him exactly what happened. He reassured me himself that when they had broken up, it was for a reason. I felt kind of silly after the fact. My best friend was about to get married and he was happy, and my wife was happy with me. I apologized to both of them for creating drama out of nothing, and we moved on. My best friend's wedding was getting closer, and I was busy preparing for my best man speech. He meant the absolute world to me, so I wanted to do something that would be heartfelt but also funny. I thought that maybe playing a little joke on him at first would be fitting for our relationship. During the reception, there was going to be a large projector to show some highlights of the relationship between my best friend and his fiancée. I thought that it might be funny to add some embarrassing pictures of him. I had the idea to just tell a few short anecdotes about how much of a mess he was before he met his fiancée, then to show some of the nicer pictures of him after the fact. My wife was at work, and my computer had recently been on the fritz, so when I went to look at all the pictures I had on my hard drive, I had to use my wife's computer. I didn't go looking for anything on her computer. It popped up at the most unfortunate time. She had desktop notifications set up for her Facebook account. All of our group chats were through Facebook Messenger, so I saw a bunch of those notifications pop up while I was looking through pictures. In the middle of my search, I saw a notification come up from my best friend. It was a little bit alarming because I didn't think they really had private conversations with each other anymore. A lot of the insecurities that I had popped up again. I didn't want to snoop and look at it, so I tried to ignore it. However, shortly after I received one notification, there was another. More kept coming up, and I was only able to read snippets of them before they would disappear. I was getting the sense that they were having an active conversation. I saw one message that said maybe we ended things too early. That was enough for me to need to know more about the conversation. I opened the chat and read over the conversation they were having. I looked back further and realized that for several days they had been chatting and talking about some of the things they used to do together. My friend said that he loved his fiancée, but he thought that she was boring. He was complaining to my wife about their sex life and saying that it was unsatisfying to him. He remembered some of the times he and my wife used to have and described them in explicit detail. My wife went along with it instead of shutting it down. They were both talking about some of the things they did while they were studying abroad for a while, when they went on trips together, and when they were sneaking around in public. At the end of the conversation, my friend said that he thought about her while he was with his fiancée. I felt like my heart was ripped in two when I saw my wife say that she thought about him while she was with me. While they were talking, I was watching the entire conversation happen live. They didn't want to risk throwing away the chemistry they had, so they set a date to be together. They were going to try to figure out if they were going to give it another try or not. I was supposed to be going on a work retreat for one night the following Friday, so that's when they decided to meet. I started screenshotting some of the messages where they talked about setting a date and recounting their memories, but as I was going, the messages were getting deleted. I decided to pretend like nothing was happening when my wife got home, but I was already thinking of ways that I could get back at them for what they were planning. The Friday that they planned to be together came, and I made sure I was able to get some evidence of their affair. I installed a remote viewing camera, and while they were in the bedroom fully having sex with each other, I took a couple of pictures for my evidence. I got everything in order. I consulted with a divorce attorney, and I was ready to serve my wife the papers. The day of the wedding finally came, and I was unsure of how I was going to go about everything. I had a plan, but I was starting to doubt myself. I had a perfect plan to expose both my wife and friend for their time together, but I started to think that maybe it wasn't the right place. The more I saw my friend with his fiancée, the more it made me want to do it. They had both betrayed our trust, and I wanted to humiliate them. During the reception, it was time for the speeches. I started my speech as if I were giving a nice little talk about my friend. The projector came on, and instead of showing pictures of my friend and his fiancée, I showed pictures of my friend and my wife. I was able to find some pictures that corresponded with the stuff they were saying in their messages. I recited those messages as the pictures appeared on the screen. Toward the end, I added in a picture of them sleeping together with the date. It was only 2 weeks before the wedding. Chaos erupted around us, and I just stood there and watched it happen. My wife stormed up to me to ask what I was doing, and I just told her that it was over and we would be getting divorced. My friend was getting chewed out by his fiancée, and her father looked like he might actually kill him. It's safe to say I completely ruined the wedding. I ended up divorcing my wife, getting to keep the house, the car, everything. My friend and fiancée annulled their marriage. His fiancée's father forced him to pay back everything he spent on the wedding and threatened litigation. My ex-wife and ex-best friend decided they wanted to try and see if they could work things out. They dated for about a week, and the same issues they had when they were in college popped up and they broke up. So it really was all for nothing. They just showed their true colors to everyone. Opie, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Having your wife cheat on you is already bad enough, but when it's with somebody like a best friend, it's unimaginable. They were two people that you thought you could trust, and they proved to be selfish and untrustworthy. Your gut instinct told you that there was something wrong with their relationship, and you were right to question her about it. Maybe at the time there wasn't anything going on, but it seems like when they were faced with it, they caved in. I think it might have been better to do something before the wedding, however, since your ex-best friend had to pay for the wedding, it was justified. Hopefully you and the fiancé of your ex-friend can move past what happened, and you won't let this hold you back from meeting other genuine good people. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact. To make sure you don't miss the next story, subscribe to the channel below this video, and don't forget to like it and share your opinions in the comments. Friends, you're going to love today's story. I'm sure you will. So get comfortable and enjoy listening. We begin. Until I was 19, I didn't have women. At 19, shortly after my birthday, I slept with a woman for the first time. Her name was Luba. She was 2 years older than me. We started dating. Luba was a typical girl of easy virtue. Almost every day she drank, played around, cheated on me with everyone. She didn't even miss my friends. It was a ridiculous affair. At Manius, I will attach what kept me near her for almost 3 months. After another, rather cynical cheating on her with my neighbor, I broke off relations with her. There were horrible tantrums on her part, tears, requests, and pleas. But except for disgust, my first woman did not cause me anything. In general, with difficulty, we parted. Soon after parting with Luba, I met my first love, Olga. I changed my name. Our acquaintance was unnatural and atypical. There is a type of girl who sleeps with everyone, not by choice, but by compulsion. Olga slept with a boy when she was 14. She thought it was love. The boy, naturally, didn't love her. He bragged to a friend. The friend wanted to sleep with her too. They tricked her into it. They bragged to others. They wanted to do it too. In the long run, they tricked and threatened her and forced her to sleep with the rest of the group. Then they got fed up with Olga and handed her over to another company. And she began to go around. And it went on like that for 2 years. By that time, rumors about her dependability had spread far beyond her company. Almost our whole little town knew about her. My friend and I got to know her. We got to know her, invited her to my house, and slept with her, both of us. We didn't even talk her into it. Soon my friend went back to his girlfriend, and Olga and I stayed alone with her all night. And as it happened that night, you won't believe it, but that night we fell in love with each other. Yeah, I knew she was a whore. I knew our love wasn't real. I knew it wasn't real. I knew it shouldn't be. But love is love. We fell in love, that's all. And nothing else mattered. At first, everyone laughed at me, made fun of me. Her former lovers stepped up, looking for meetings with her. But we somehow fought it. We loved each other madly. We decided to get married and have children. We spent 9 happy months together. It hurt me, of course, to remember her past. It hurt to see every day her lovers meeting on the street. I was a romantic back then, but the pain was dulling. Love was taking over. The first betrayal from her side happened 9 months after our first meeting. All this time, Olga lived with me. But then suddenly she made up with her parents, and without saying a word to me, she left the city with them for Moscow. Just one day I came home, and she was gone. A month later, I found out that Olga was pregnant. She wrote to me herself. I went to fetch her. I would have gone right away, but I didn't have any money for the trip. It was the early 1990s, and cash was scarce. I had to go from the Far East to the capital. As soon as I earned the money I needed, I went and brought it back. I got a job as a stoker in a boiler house, started working, forgot about my friends. We were expecting a baby. In the spring of 1995, our elder son was born. 2 months after his birth, we moved to Moscow to live with Olga's parents. I got a job at a big construction site as a fitter. I was paid well. We were given an apartment in the workers' barracks and put on a waiting list for capital housing in a 9-story building under construction. In 1996, my daughter was born. All in all, life was going well. Everything was good. The second betrayal was unexpected for me. I was working on a rotational basis in Kashira, but we lived in Kalamna. One day, they let me off work 2 days early. I'd arrived early in the morning without warning and found her with her lover at our house. She didn't throw a tantrum or ask for forgiveness. Said she was in love. The guy fought in Chechnya. A real man, unlike me. But love is love. I didn't make a scandal either. Why should I return love with scandals? Why should I pay such a price for love? I left the same day, went back to work, and never came back. I lived at the station in a dormitory. Worked. 2 or 3 weeks later, I heard a rumor that this real man had left her, and she was already living with some officer, 10 years older than her. Then I found out that not only our whole place had been through, but almost the whole unit that was nearby. I got tired of putting up with it, so I filed for divorce. We made a deal with Olga. She stayed with our son in our apartment, and I left with my daughter to my mother in the Far East. Olga came to see me and my daughter after 6 months. Her apartment was taken away from her. It was a departmental property, and her parents didn't want to let her in. My mother, in turn, flatly refused to let Olga in. In short, I gave in to her pleas, remorse, and promises. By hook or by crook, I managed to get an apartment in a boarded-up barrack. We were living together again, but something inside me was already broken. All the time, there was some kind of pain in the soul. I was already worried about our life together, but my children, my family, my wife on maternity leave, I had to live somehow. I got a job again as a stoker in a boiler room, and I began to think about going to university by correspondence. I wanted to work as a journalist, but at that time, I did not even have secondary education. So in parallel with the work in the boiler room, I went to study at night school. And knowing that for admission, I needed articles from newspapers, a creative competition, I took a job at a newspaper as a freelance correspondent. After the fourth article, the editor suggested that I quit the boiler room and start working for the newspaper as a staff writer, which I did. I practically graduated with straight A's. In summer, I went to university. I came back in half a month and found out that Olga had fallen out again. In the middle of the night, guys came over in their cars, called her out for a ride, made a fuss, and sorted things out with her. At first, I chased them away, then I went back to my mother's place. At first, I tried to help Ola, but then I stopped. I stopped after one day. I brought in a new door. Ours was kept on the word of honor and the workers, and she was there with a man. Although I told the workers that I was putting the door for myself, and they knew that Olga was my wife. In general, these workers must have laughed at me hardly. I went to my mother, then rented an apartment. One day in the fall, about 2 or 3 months after we broke up, Olga came to see me at work. She told me she was pregnant and had married another man. From that day on, I started to go crazy, in the truest sense of the word. I won't describe how bad it was for me, but 6 months later I was already in a mental hospital. I spent more than 2 months in a youth house, was discharged and left the city in order never to see Olga again. I lived in Siberia in Krasnoyarsk region for almost a year, then I left for Moscow with a friend. And what did you think? Naturally, Olga divorced her husband, took her children and came to live with me, because she had nowhere else to go. Our second departmental apartment was taken away from her, and we started to live together again in Moscow. Me, her, our 2 children, and her third child. But somehow things didn't work out for us anymore. My work did not work out, there was no harmony in my family, and I was strangled by my resentment towards Olga. We lived like this for a few months, and leaving Olga in the care of her parents, I returned to Krasnoyarsk region. I worked at a newspaper, studied at the university by correspondence, and then again a metamorphosis. Olga unexpectedly comes to see me, not out of great love, but simply because I had problems with my parents and my accommodation. I had nowhere to go with the children in my arms, and I, like a fool, believed her for the umpteenth time. We tried to live together, but it didn't work out at all. Scandals, swearing, tantrums. Life was a living hell. Something must have broken inside me, and even our 2 children together could not hold me back for the umpteenth time. In 2002, deep in the fall, Olga and I parted ways once again. I returned to my hometown in the Far East. It was a turning point. I no longer had any regrets, I no longer loved anyone, I no longer wanted anyone. I got a job again as a stoker in a municipal boiler house. They gave me a place to live. I made good money. I had enough to live on. A year later, I went to the university. I reached the 3rd year. I went to see my children. Olga went somewhere. She hadn't been home for 3 weeks by then. The kids were with strangers. I spit on everything and took my 2 children with me and left. I left the university for good. Soon, Olga had a good time and came with her son to see us with the kids. She asked me to forgive her. She asked me desperately. And once again, I forgave her. Or rather, I didn't forgive, I let it go on its own. I no longer believed her, but I felt sorry for the children. This is how the first 10 years of our life together passed. I specifically want to distinguish this period. 10 ugly years of our life were left behind. I was 29 at that time, Olga was 26, and our children were 9, 8, and 4 years old. We were officially divorced, but we were back together. Getting ahead of myself, I'll tell you. It was as if Olga had been switched. She no longer looked at other men. She was a faithful friend, exactly as a friend, and exactly as a faithful one. Well, what was there to be nervous about? 3 young children. I gave up on everything. I lived for my kids and my family. I told Olga right away, we'll live together until you go on another binge. I didn't have the illusion anymore. I worked as a stoker, Olga as a janitor. One day, I had the idea to open a company. Olga supported me, we took out a few loans, and the business went ahead. Since 2006 and up to now, the firm has been flourishing. We got a good deal of money. From time to time, I even started to meet prostitutes when I was on a business trip. I'm writing about this on purpose, so you won't think I'm a saint. I didn't give a damn about anything. I knew that Olga and I would break up. I just knew. I was tired of playing it by then. The role of the faithful husband of a sucker. I didn't say anything to Olga, of course. All in all, everything was fine. The kids were growing up, the firm was thriving. Olga was a faithful friend and companion in the company. The firm was run by the two of them. But 3 years ago, Olga was diagnosed with cancer. I thought I was going to lose her. It was only then that I realized how much I loved her. Anyway, I did everything I could to get Olga out of the afterlife. I was very much afraid of losing her. A miracle happened. Olga recovered, and I made a promise to myself to live only for her. Not to cheat, not to sleep with prostitutes, to forget all the past offenses and to live for the sake of my beloved. I forgave her, and I forgot all the bad things. You'd think this would be it. A happy ending. But it wasn't. One winter, 12 to 13 years, Olga began to move away from me internally. We started having scandals over nothing, and a lot of time began to be spent on the internet. We almost stopped sleeping together. I began to be afraid that Olga might take advantage of me again. One day, in a confidential conversation, I told her, just do not cheat on me. Don't make a lift out of it. If you want to change in sex, new sensations, then let's meet like swingers meet, together. Or let's man-woman man. I understood that she hadn't had any other men in 10 years. That she was probably bored with me. She said that if she wanted something like that, she would tell me. But she would not cheat. And so, on March 14th of that year, Olga went to a friend until 9 p.m. I let her go. Why not? She came not at 9, but at 12 a.m. She came cheerful and excited. Immediately, she lay down and fell asleep. I couldn't sleep. I sat in my room and smelled another man's toilet water. I had my doubts. In the first life, I got into her phone, found a text message from the cab company. Her cab wasn't picking her up from the street where her friend lived, but from a completely different one. In the morning, I took Olga's conversation. While she was sleepy and not thinking clearly, I said that she had not been to her friend's house, but had seen her on such and such a street with a man. Olga admitted that yes, she had met a man. I asked why. What was missing? She said she had wanted to try BDSM for a long time. I asked if she liked it. Olga replied that yes, she did. I congratulated her on these, told her I was leaving. We parted. Olga didn't even begin to ask for forgiveness then. She just went off to work. I trusted her in recent years, especially after she almost died of cancer. I knew her passwords and email accounts, created them myself at her request. But then I decided to break in. Hacked into her email account, found out she was registered on a BDSM site. Hacked into her profile. Turned out she had been actively looking for a sadistic lover for 3 months. There was a bunch of virtual correspondence where she was being humiliated and put down. It was clear from her that she had been communicating both on the web and on the phone. She was looking for a guy for a long time because the town was small, and there was no one from our town. Well, a sadist from our town registered there. And they met. And in fact, after that meeting I caught them. She was quite active on this site. She complained that her husband, I mean me, she is quite proud of Aisha. She complained that the subject corrodes from the inside and she looks at every man, whether he is sadistic or not. Just don't think I'm some kind of prude in this business. I've offered to play BDSM with her myself. I wanted to and liked such fantasies, but to play for a change. She, on the other hand, apparently needed to get into it head first. Or she just wanted to do it not with me. I don't know. And it doesn't matter anymore. Now, August and spring. It's like she's been switched again. Tantrums, tears. She says she doesn't want anything or anyone but me. She tries to please me in everything. I can see that she is very remorseful, forgives me to forgive and believe for the last time. Except I can't forgive now. Apparently, I've run out of goodbyes. Now look what we have. One firm between the two of us. Loans are 2 million in debt. Older children, students study in another city and need to support. Apartment, 2 dogs, a car, a bunch of stuff together. I am 39. Olga is 36. My kids are 18, 17, 14. And we have 20 years of life together behind us. And we have to give it all up. Because I can't live with her anymore. Psychologically, I can't live with her anymore. I'm sick of being cheated on. For the last 10 years, I thought I was fixed. But no, we're in the middle of a divorce. As soon as I'm done with the firm and the loans in 2 months, I'll leave. I'll leave everything to her. I'm going nowhere. No apartment, no family. I probably won't be able to go anywhere. Such a ridiculous life. I didn't write this to get advice. Advice I do not need. I decided myself. I am writing to the fact that there is a popular belief that the girls of easy virtue are faithful wives. They say they've been through fire and water and won't go out anymore. No, it's not like that. And my life is an example of that. That's why I say don't marry girls of easy virtue. Look for normal women. I'm not being slanderous. I'm just warning the young. Such is the story. Share in the comments what you think of this situation and the behavior of the characters. And thank you for listening to the story to the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And make sure you like this video. This will help you a lot in promoting the channel. One day, I fell ill and collapsed. Seeing that, my son Ethan told my wife, Madison, "Mom, we need to take him to the hospital." Hearing it, Madison uttered an unbelievable response. "I have a trip planned, so no can do." She has been spending less time at home recently. It started about 6 months ago when I took over my father's job. Despite the suddenness, I thought she might be enduring it, so I worked desperately hard at both my job and parenting. But eventually, I reached my limit and ended up being hospitalized. After being unreachable for several days on her trip, Madison called and asked Ethan, "Where's Dad?" Then, he said something shocking. "My name is John Anderson. I turned 42 this year. I got married 8 years ago, and a year later, we had our child, living together as a family of 3. I work as a doctor. Initially, I was employed at a university hospital, but inspired by my father's dedication as a community-based private practitioner, I decided to follow in his footsteps. Half a year ago, when my father fell ill and had to be hospitalized, thinking of closing his practice, I resigned from the university hospital to take over, which made him happy. Following that, we moved to my childhood home next to the clinic. The building was old, so I mentioned to my father about wanting to renovate eventually, and he told me to do as I wished. Even after taking over, the community has continued to rely on me, which brings me daily satisfaction. I named our son Ethan, hoping he would grow up to be strong. He's in the 1st grade now but already expresses a desire to become a doctor and is learning German. He has exceeded my expectations and has grown into a responsible son. Sometimes, he's so mature it worries me, but seeing him play in the mud at the park reminds me he's still just a kid. My wife Madison is beautiful but capricious. Lately, she's been less inclined to help with household chores or parenting, which has been a concern. In the beginning, we shared household duties, and she participated in parenting, but that has almost ceased in the past 6 months. Occasionally, she'll take Ethan to the grocery store, but it's always me who takes him to parks or playgrounds as if it's a given. I don't mind, but we've been lacking family outings recently, so today, I suggested we all go out together. "Hey, we haven't been out just the 3 of us for a while. How about we go out next Sunday?" "Madison, you haven't been out much with Ethan, have you?" "It can't be helped. I'm busy. Ethan wants to go to a movie. How about we go together this Sunday? After that, we can eat out." "A movie? Huh?" Madison glanced at her phone and then said to me, "Well, all right. I don't have any plans anyway." "That's great. Ethan will be so happy." "Thank you. I'm going to take a bath and go to bed." "All right. Good night." She took her phone and left the living room. Oh man, I really want to talk more with her. I want to go out and do things together. We used to talk about the future and go out together, but today was good. Usually, she would decline, so I'm honestly surprised. Hearing her agree made me happy, and I immediately told Ethan in his room. On that Sunday, "Ethan, are you ready?" "All set. I'm ready whenever." "All right. Just waiting on Madison." "Ethan, where's Mom?" "I don't know." I knocked on Madison's door but got no response. I tried again and slowly opened the door. "Madison, are you there?" Opening the door, she was nowhere to be found. Maybe she's in the bathroom. At that moment, my phone rang, and it was Madison on the screen. "Madison, what's up with the call?" "Sorry, but I can't make it today after all. Some work came up suddenly." "What? You didn't mention it yesterday, did you?" "I said it came up all of a sudden. Just go to the movie, the 2 of you. It's not a problem without me, right?" She said in a rushed tone and hung up. "Oh, come on. I thought we could finally go out as a trio." "Dad, what's wrong? Where's Mom?" "Mom got caught up with work, so it's just the 2 of us, okay?" "Okay, got it." Ethan showed a slightly sad face, but then smiled at me. Feeling sorry that he was looking forward to it, I decided we'd enjoy our day, just the 2 of us. "All right. Ethan, let's go. After the movie, how about we grab your favorite burger on the way back?" "Yes." We grabbed our stuff and headed to the movie theater by car. A few hours later. "Did you have fun, Ethan?" "Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for taking me, Dad." "Sure. Let's do it again." When Ethan and I got back in the evening, Madison was already home. "I'm home. Sorry we're late. We went to the park and other places in the afternoon." "It's fine," she replied indifferently as usual. Ethan approached her quietly. "Here. This is a present for you," he said, taking something out of his backpack. "What's this?" Today, There was a keychain making workshop, and I made one for everyone. This one's for you. Saying that, he handed her a white star-shaped keychain. Before going to the park, we stopped by a craft workshop nearby, and Ethan wanted to do it, so he made keychains for all three of us. He chose green for himself, and I got blue. Madison accepted the present from him. It turned out well, didn't it? He said with a happy face. Well, I don't think I'll wear it, but I'll take it anyway. I'm tired. I'll be in my room. Saying that, she left the living room. Madison. I couldn't stand her tone and followed her. Hey, wait. Ethan went to all that trouble to make it. That's no way to talk. I said in a voice Ethan couldn't hear. I didn't say I didn't want it, did I? Madison, can't you spend a bit more time at home? There are things I want to discuss. I've said it before, haven't I? I don't want to stay in this old moldy place. Why did you quit the university hospital? That's because. I tried to explain, but she locked herself in her room. She seems to dislike that I decided to move here. I begged her to stay. I understood it was hard on her, but I wanted to talk it out, and this is what it's come to. Even if she doesn't like it, she shouldn't say that about something our kid worked hard to make. I returned to the living room with a heavy heart, where Ethan was. Maybe I should have chosen something different for Mom. He looked a bit down. Ethan, Mom's just tired from work. Hey, maybe I'll attach it to my work bag. What about you? I think I'll put it on my backpack. He smiled brightly. Madison's attitude must hurt him. It wasn't like this before. Ever since we moved here, she's become more indifferent. It can't go on. For Ethan's sake, I need to talk this through properly next time. A few days later, when I got home from work late at night, Ethan was waiting and watching TV. Sorry I'm late, Ethan. Got caught up talking to a patient. I'll make dinner in a sec. Hi, Dad. It's okay. And I folded the laundry. Wow. Thanks, Ethan. He would take the initiative to do the laundry or vacuum. He only cooks when I'm around, and since it's still a bit dangerous for him to cook alone, he is really growing up to be responsible. Dad? Oh yeah. I'll start getting dinner ready now. I'll help too. After putting down our stuff, we started preparing dinner together. Ethan, what do you want to do tomorrow? Dad's off in the afternoon, so we can do whatever you like. Yay. I'll think about it. Got it. Tomorrow is Ethan's birthday. Madison surely knows about it. I even reminded her yesterday to make sure she'd buy a present, so it should be fine. Of course, I've prepared something too, but I'm worried if he'll like it. The next morning, Madison must have come back late last night. I can hear some noises from her room now. I knocked twice. Then, hearing a low response, I opened the door to find her still in her pajamas, phone in hand. Need something? I'll be at work until noon, so please take care of Ethan. Did you get him a present? And don't forget we're going out this afternoon. I know. Don't keep repeating it. Close the door when you're done, she replied irritably, her attention returning to her phone, so I quietly closed the door as told. Really hope everything's okay. With a mix of anxiety and hope, I leaned more towards hope. Heading to the living room, Ethan was already there. Happy 7th birthday, Ethan. Here. A present for you. Thank you. Can I open it? Of course. Ethan excitedly opened the bag. Wow. Awesome. I gave him my old stethoscope, which way I used to use. My father gave it to me when I was a child, just like him now. I remember being just as thrilled when I showed it to him before. He really liked it, so now I decided to pass it on to him. But I felt bad giving just that, so I included a basketball too. Is it okay to get two? Take good care of them. Okay? Sure. Seeing him like this, he still feels so much like a kid. Let's do whatever you want today. I'll wrap up work quickly and come back, so wait here with Mom. Have a good work. Absolutely. I'll do my best. After getting him to eat breakfast, I let Madison know before heading to the clinic next door for work. After lunch break, when I finished work and came home, Ethan was sitting alone in the living room. Where's Mom? She left a while ago. What? She said to wait here because Dad would be back soon. I immediately called Madison's phone. Hello? She sounded as grumpy as usual. Madison, why aren't you here? I had something to do. I'll be back by tonight. Tonight? Today is Ethan's birthday, you know that? We said we'd go out together this afternoon. As I was scolding her over the phone, Ethan was shaking his head, signaling it was okay. All right. Make sure you're back tonight. Got it? Okay. Yeah. I know. She hung up. Despite being irritated, today is Ethan's birthday. I decided to focus only on him. Ethan, what do you want to do today? I want to play basketball and want to eat your steak. Is that what you want? When I asked, he nodded enthusiastically. Then, we spent the day doing things he loves, like playing basketball and visiting a bookstore. On our way back, we bought cake. Just as the steaks were about to be ready, I checked my phone to contact Madison and saw a text message from her. It was, "I'd be back today." Seeing it, I suddenly felt a wave of exhaustion. Noticing my mood, Ethan asked, "Dad, are you okay?" "Yeah. The steaks are ready. Let's eat them together. We've got cake too. Let's eat." I celebrated his birthday by eating steak, talking about school, basketball, and his German classes. In the next late morning, I woke up almost before noon, probably due to exhaustion. Oh no. I quickly changed and left my room, only to bump into Madison. "Madison, what happened yesterday? Ethan was waiting for you the whole time. I came back within the day. You both were just sleeping, weren't you? Anyway, I'm in a hurry." She hurried off to the bathroom. Oh dear. I could only let out a sigh of resignation, as well as I felt somewhat sluggish. As I slowly made my way to the living room, I found Ethan. "Ethan, sorry I'm late. You must be hungry, right? You could have woken me up." "It's okay. I ate some bread." "Sorry." I felt guilty. This had never happened before. As I was about to make some coffee, pouring water into the pot to boil it, that's when it happened. My vision blurred, and I felt so dizzy I couldn't stand. Then, I dropped the mug I was holding, and it crashed loudly to the floor. "Dad, are you okay?" Hearing Ethan's voice, I collapsed. "Dad, are you okay?" "Hey, Dad." "Ethan, sorry. Get Mom." "Got it." Just as he was about to go get Madison, she walked into the living room, and he quickly ran up to her. "Mom, we need to take him to the hospital." "What? What's all this sudden?" Dad collapsed. "Please help." I hoped she would respond to his desperate plea. As my consciousness faded, I thought. However, her response was unexpected. "I have a trip, so no can do." "What? What about Dad? He'll get better soon. Besides, I'm going on a trip with my parents for about 4 days, so take care," she said to me lying on the floor, in a somewhat cheerful voice. "Mom, Ethan, I'll bring you a gift, so wait here nicely with Dad." With that, she left. I couldn't believe that was happening, leaving her incapacitated husband and 7-year-old son behind. More than that, I had to let someone know for Ethan's sake for now. I managed to grab my smartphone from my pants and then lost consciousness. A few hours later, I woke up in a hospital bed. "Dad." "Ethan." Beside me stood Ethan, a doctor, and a few neighbors. Confused about what had happened, I looked around, and the doctor explained. "You collapsed from anemia, and it seems like you were quite exhausted too. Is that so? Thanks for everything." As I lay there, thanking them, the doctor shook his head with a kind expression and explained what had happened. "Your thanks should go to your son. He used your smartphone to call an ambulance and alert the neighbors." "What? You did all that by yourself?" "Yeah. Remember, you taught me the emergency number?" "Right. Thank you, Ethan." I stroked his head, and he looked at me with determined eyes. I always knew he was dependable, but I hadn't realized just how much he had grown. I felt sorry for the others, but learning about my son's growth made me happy. A few days later, my phone kept ringing, so I reluctantly answered, only to find Ethan on the other end. "Mom? What's up?" "Ethan, it's you? Where are you?" Where's Dad?" Unfazed by Madison's panic, he dropped a bombshell. "Dad has gone far away." "What? What does that mean? Far away?" "I'm near the house, at a restaurant." "Bye. Restaurant?" "Wait." He hung up without listening to her. A few minutes later, Madison rushed into the restaurant and sat down in front of Ethan. "Ethan, and you're here too." Ethan said you'd gone far away in a gloomy voice. "What? You thought something happened to me after I collapsed?" "Well, I mean, I was just worried." She looked a bit sheepish. "Because Dad went to the far restroom." Ethan explained with an upward glance. "Come on, you're confusing. But more importantly, our house. Why is there no house?" Her panic wasn't just about me being gone, but also about our house disappearing. Actually, I had been considering remodeling the house. But after consulting with my hospitalized father, we decided to demolish it and build a new. I had wanted to discuss it with her, but she never listened, so I kept it to myself. "What? So, it's going to be a new house? Awesome. You could have just said that. It's such a surprise." "Madison, you weren't around, were you? And when we moved here, I did mention that we build new eventually, didn't I?" "Did you? So, when will it be ready?" She looked at me with a happy face. She's always been easy to read because her emotions show on her face. I called a neighbor who was at the hospital with me, and they came to the restaurant right away to take Ethan for a while. "Well then, shall we have an adult conversation?" "Oh, it's a house for the 3 of us, but I think it will be ready within 6 months." "Really? But where's my stuff? Where did you keep it? And why Ethan?" "Oh, I can't discuss this in front of Ethan." "What's that supposed to mean?" She looked puzzled. Your belongings. I stored them at a young man's place. What are you talking about? There's no such person. I've checked everything, so lies won't work. What? Her behavior changed suddenly after we moved, and her sudden work commitments were unlike her, so I had felt something was off. Though I thought she might be busy with work, asking a relative who worked at the same place revealed that wasn't the case. Besides, I doubted she would go on a trip with her parents. She always said they were strict and hardly spoke to them. Therefore, after collapsing, I contacted my in-laws once. As expected, they were home and didn't know her whereabouts, so I hired a detective agency to investigate. Just as I suspected, she had another man. It was a young guy. Here's the evidence. What? When did you? I presented the documents and photos gathered by the investigation in front of her. There was no escaping the truth now. Realizing she couldn't deny it, she started to apologize. I'm sorry. I was out of my mind. I won't do it again. Forgive me. Okay? We're a married couple, right? What are you saying? You were with him even when I was collapsing and during Ethan's birthday, weren't you? Let's get a divorce. Divorce? Wait, but you just said a house for three? That includes me, right? Indeed, I was building a house for the three of us. But Madison wasn't part of that three. When I said three, I meant Ethan, my father, and me. What? You know, I was stressed because the environment changed. That's it. You'll forgive me, right? She tried to cuddle up to me with a pleading voice, not caring about the people around us. Sure, I changed our environment, but that doesn't justify betraying the family. Finally, I handed her the divorce papers. Sign here, now. I'll also demand compensation from you and the other man. I'll take custody, so I'll need child support too. If you don't agree, I'm ready to take this to court. Are you serious? Realizing I was serious, she signed the papers, trembling and in tears. We officially divorced soon after, and I got the compensation and child support settled properly. She got embarrassed by that incident becoming known at her workplace and resigned at the end. She had nowhere to go and tried to stay with her boyfriend, but he kicked her out, angry about the compensation demands. Unable to find a full-time job, she's now living quietly in an old house, juggling day and night shifts. I heard those stories when I met her. She insisted on giving Ethan his birthday present, so I arranged for them to meet at the restaurant. It had only been a month, but she looked unkempt and thinner, almost unrecognizable. Ethan, I'm sorry for being late. Happy birthday. Handing the present to Ethan, he silently accepted and opened it. Inside was a black bag. How do you like it? You're in elementary school now, so I thought something a bit mature. When Madison asked in a small voice, he responded loudly. I don't think I'll use it, but I'll take it. What? Ethan? Let's go home, Dad. Okay. Yeah, let's go. Stunned by his unexpected response, Madison remained frozen. Two of us left the restaurant. A marriage starts with two strangers. When they marry and have children, living together, not everything goes as planned. That's why couples and families need to support each other to last. 6 months later, our house was completed. My father was discharged from the hospital and seemed in good health. Amazing. It's beautiful. Yeah, I'm glad we decided to build a new one. From now on, it will be just the three of us men. There might be challenges, but we'll support each other and live together. All right, I've got to keep working hard. Go, Dad. Ethan cheered, wearing the stethoscope I gave him. I vow to continue my work with pride and compassion. Being a doctor and father Ethan can always rely on, showing him just here to get straight to the point. My wife and I have been married since we were 25. We are 38 now. We met in college, got married, and everything has been great. We both graduated, got good jobs, and started our lives together. Me and my wife both made good money, so money was never an issue for us. My wife worked for her dad's small business, while I worked for a very large company. After a few years, my boss left the company out of nowhere, and they needed someone to take over. The only person who knew how to run the department was me, so I got a major pay jump, a better bonus, and better benefits. So, at 28, I was making probably 3 times more than my wife. That same year, my wife gave birth to our first daughter. Then, 2 years later, our second. My wife, due to working for her father, was able to be more diverse in working. Well, around 5 years ago, my father-in-law passed away unexpectedly. That left my mother-in-law and wife in a hard position. Sell the company or run it themselves. My mother-in-law had no clue how to run it, so my wife said she would do it. After my wife took the company, it did just as well as when her father ran it. With that being said, my wife got a huge pay increase, more than me. I was proud of her. Going from a basic worker to running a whole company isn't easy. Anyway, Our daughter started suffering from not seeing their parents. Me and my wife discussed one of us staying home. She said, "The company you work for will be fine without you. Mine could go under." I agreed. So I quit my job and became a stay-at-home dad and husband. I do everything. I make sure the girls are all taken care of. I cook, clean, fix things, make sure errands are run, you name it. I pamper my wife when she gets home from work. This went well for a while until about a year ago. My wife was always very appreciative of what I did and loved it. She has become very mean lately, saying things like, "Do you do anything? Or how about you work for real?" I work my butt off every day, making sure you don't have to lift a finger when you get home at all. Also, I had a real job, but I quit to raise and take care of the girls, our home, and you. Not to mention my wife is very sexual, always has been. She quit initiating sex, and when I asked she is never in the mood, that was very odd. Eventually, I quit trying. I just thought, with all the pandemic crap and everything else, she was just very stressed, and it was getting to her. I started trying harder to make her happy. Nothing ever worked. Last weekend, my oldest had a softball game. So, I get everything ready and we go. During the game, I wanted to take a video of my mom and dad, since they live in another state and don't get to see my daughters that often. I forgot my phone, so I asked my wife if I could see hers. She hadn't been attached to it all day, so it would be good for her to get off it. Anyway, she hands it to me and says she is going to get a drink and a snack. She gets up. I video my daughter when a message comes up on some app. I check, and I can't even fathom what I see. My wife and this guy from her work, who is 8 years younger, are sexting and sending videos and pics, talking about how great the sex was, and then me. He is saying how I am some wimp who can't get a real job taking care of his woman, and my wife agrees with him. I couldn't believe what I saw. I was so devastated and angry all at the same time. I heard my wife coming back, so I closed the app and started videoing. On the ride home, and when we get home, my wife tries to talk to me, and I am not in the mood. Eventually, we lay in bed, and for the first time, I guess they hadn't met in a while, trying to have sex. I tell her I am not in a mood. She says, "If you are going to be a bitch about everything, you can sleep on the couch." I got up and went to the couch, and now I've been here since. I don't know how to move forward with this. I really just don't know where to start. My wife was my everything. My girls are my world, and all of that is dying. Update. First off, I do have the text, pics, videos, and everything. Second, I don't any of the company. It is 50 to 50 between her and my mother-in-law. Third, I can't sleep in bed. I have been sleeping in the guest bedroom every night, and that is where I will be staying. To answer, I have decided to divorce her. Anyway, this morning, I called a firm in another town to avoid anyone finding out. Thankfully, they were able to get me in this morning, as someone had canceled. After dropping off my girls, I drove over there. To make a long story short, he is a good lawyer. I showed him what I had. He said that luckily for me, with the evidence I have, she will be pretty much screwed in the divorce. Seeing as I quit my job to raise our girls, she is never home. She is having an affair, prioritizes this man over me and my girls, and she will lose very easily. He basically said we will get child support and alimony. I will keep the house, and she will have to pay for it as long as my girls live there. Also, he stated that we could even try for more money, since I am considered no longer viable in the working world, to help me pay for more education to get a job. Some of you were right. He said to not work until after the divorce is over. He said since you are the husband, if you have a job, you can lose a lot of this. He asked if I wanted full custody. I said that I don't mind my wife seeing her girls on the affair in the marital home. I can basically do what I want. He also stated that bringing over a strange man to the house put the girls in danger and makes her guilty. So, I will be going for full custody, where she can get weekends once maybe twice a month. No man will be allowed around my girls, and if there are she could face problems with me if I find out. I just don't want that piece of garbage around my girls. He eventually said to keep quiet until the draft are ready, and then he will issue someone to serve her and have it issued that she is required to leave the home. He said he should have it done sometime next week. Update. To preface, I have talked to my lawyer about these posts. I didn't go into too much detail. They did tell me though as long as I keep them brief and not super specific that I can post, but I just have to be careful about what I put on to not lead to too many details. That is that. We will start with the test. I was able to get an STD on myself and a paternity test on my girls. I came out that I thankfully have no disease and I am clear. Since I have been pretty much sexless from her for the last year, I wasn't all that surprised. Now for the one that I am sure most of you are wondering. The test on my 2 girls. Am I the dad? I will always be their dad regardless of the results. However, I am here to say that yes, I am their father. I have never been so happy to know that I am their dad. Never thought I would have to question it, but here we are. As for what has happened with my stacks, well, she is out of the house and I have been granted full temporary custody. In the future, I will go into more specific details. However, for now, she is out of the house. My lawyer set everything up for me to get my girls and make sure that we legally handled her being removed from the home. It wasn't pretty, but details for another time. She was served at work, and from what I know it wasn't pretty. Like I said though, details for another time? My girls know what is going on. My oldest knows we are separating, and one of her friend's parents split for the same reason. She has seen what happened with her friend and doesn't want us to split. She has been crying for me to let mommy come home. I will be getting them in with a child therapist to explain and help them understand from the direction of my lawyer. My youngest just wants mommy to come home and misses her. It kills me and makes me feel like a terrible father, and they probably hate me now. Sometimes I think I should just let their mother cheat on me to keep the family unit to make my girls happy. I just can't do that. Sometimes I think about allowing an open relationship and we can just wait till the girls are older, but that won't work for me. Plus, I know the girls will pick up on it and will not like it that mommy and daddy don't love each other. As for my ex, she is living with her mother at this point. My mother-in-law has called me and asked to meet. I agreed and we will meet at some point. She didn't ask for details as she said we will talk later, but begged me not to take her granddaughters away from her. I said you are a great and loving grandmother, and as long as you can separate my girls from what is going on between your daughter and I see no issue with you being able to see them and I will not take them out of your life. She thanked me and that is it. My ex has been trying to call me and text me trying to figure out us. Under direction of my lawyer, he has had it set up so that I can talk to her through a trackable method and it is purely about the girls. No more, no less. So that is it for now. We'll probably keep updating, and once this is all over with I will make one big update for all the details I have to be careful about as of now. Update. So first off, I had Thanksgiving with my SDBX and MIL. I did this purely for the girls and made sure with my lawyer this was only about the girls and not about reconciliation. That was taken care of. First I met with my MIL pre-Thanksgiving. We met and had a pretty mutual discussion. Mainly just things about how we will handle my daughters after. My MIL did tell me some stuff about my SDBX. I guess my SDBX was cheated on by her high school boyfriend. Didn't even know she dated anyone. I guess this guy came from one of those families, according to my MIL, and they told her to avoid him. Well, I guess one night she caught him with his head under another girl's dress and tongue deep in a girl's jewelry box. She had a couple of boyfriends they met in college, but she knew they wouldn't last. She said that as soon as she met me she found her son-in-law. She says she is so sorry for her daughter's actions and will make sure that she doesn't try to do anything problematic with the divorce. Anyway, a couple of days before Thanksgiving my MIL asked for me to come over for dinner with the girls. I asked if her daughter would be there, and she said yes. I said I can't be with her there. She said she understands, but asked if we could put on the holiday one more time for the girls. She said I know you have a lawyer. Ask them, and if they said it is a bad idea, I get it. I did, and they said to tell your wife via the app this is purely for the girls to avoid any confusion. So I did. She had contacted me before about coming over. She has been begging me to see me and the girls. The girls have been begging me to see their mom. I swallowed my pride for my girls and we went. It was awkward. My SDBX gave our daughters a hug fine then tried to hug and kiss me. I just avoided her and wouldn't give my MIL a hug. My SDBX tried to act like husband and wife and was trying to talk to me. I answered with yes and no's and helped my MIL finish dinner and clean up. My MIL is religious and wanted to do a prayer and my SDBX sat next to me. I held my daughter's hand. My wife tried to grab mine. I pulled away. I know it may seem petty, but I don't want her touching me. I am an atheist, but out of respect for my MIL, I go along with it. Dinner was fine. Again, SDBX tried to act like we are going to be married and asked about Christmas and vacations. When she mentioned this stuff, I knew going over was a mistake. We finished dinner and I pretty much got up, cleaned my daughter's dishes, then was ready to go. My daughters wanted to watch a movie with their mother that we always watch. I let them and my SDBX try to cuddle next to me on the couch. I sat in the chair after that. My MIL was very mad at my SDBX the whole night for how she acted. I could tell by the looks she gave her. My daughters fell asleep, so I carried them to the car. I went in to grab something and my SDBX grabbed me in tears begging me to work on things and that she wants to be a family and is so sorry for what happened. Before I could say anything my MIL grabbed her by the hair. Not joking. Yanked her and told me good night then began yelling at her daughter. My wife is still calling and begging now to work on us. I leave her on scene. I will only talk about the girls and I am sure they are going to want to do the same for Christmas. I don't know if I can or if it is okay. Once again I will discuss this with my lawyer. Final update. This will not be long, but things have gotten very bad for my girls. Basically, my girls had 2 sessions this week with their therapist. The first one was good. My girls came out with what seemed to be more peaceful and calmer than usual. I talked to the therapist after, and she seemed to be very good and understood my girls well. So I took them to their second one and things went horribly. Basically, the therapist explained in age-appropriate terms that the reason me and their mother are separating is because they're cheated, had an affair, and betrayed me. I knew eventually she would, but I didn't think it would happen this soon. I want to get my girls, and basically it was a burst of tears and them climbing all over me and giving me hugs, crying, saying they love me. I am happy they love me, but this is not what I wanted to happen with my girls. I asked the therapist why did she tell them. She said the girls knew you two are separating, and the girls noticed you seem to be really mean and unloving with their mother. Your girls aren't stupid, she told me. They know how you are, and they know how you treat their mom. They wanted to know why you were separating. I tried to walk around it the best I could, she said, but the girls are not going to progress in therapy if we don't tell them. I am not going to go into detail on what exactly she said to them, but it was age-appropriate. They now know the age-appropriate version of their mother being unfaithful. I think my oldest could maybe handle this and be okay, but not my youngest, so we get home and my girls won't let go of me. They are literally crying the whole night, so I order food, put their favorite movies on in my bedroom, and we laid there all night. They fell asleep and I went to the bathroom and just cried. My Stex doesn't even realize the pain she is causing our girls. I don't know how I am going to deal with this. The therapist told me we could try medication for a bit, till they get used to the new normal. I refused to do so, which she supported, and said it was just an option as I'm not drugging them. Disclaimer, she cannot give the drugs. She said they would need to see their primary, and they would probably diagnose my girls with something that would allow them to medicate them. I would rather deal with my daughter's emotions the healthy way. I won't have to worry about Christmas as my daughters hate their mother now. My oldest said she never wanted to see her again. My youngest follows what her older sister says, even though she may actually agree. I was shocked. I said, you don't hate her, you may be mad, but you don't hate her. She loves and cares about you. My oldest just said no she doesn't, and then just cried into my arms until she fell asleep, and so did my youngest. So this is my life now. I don't think there will ever be a good time to bring it up with the girls, and as their therapist said, they noticed that you are the one being mean to their mom. Kids are very observant, and they should not be forming their opinions based on half-truths. Also, their initial reaction is very understandable. There is probably a little bit of guilt since they initially thought you were the bad guy. Just continue to be there for them, and give them lots of hugs. Tell them none of this is their fault, and you both love them still. If you don't want them growing up with anger towards their mom, then discuss it with their therapist on how you can do that. That doesn't mean they have to forgive mom, just learning to let go, and not let it define them. I wish you all the best with your situation, and hope things are able to work out. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to comment below with your thoughts on this.